Right. Okay. So yeah, as Alex said, I'm David Mitchell. I'm a cloud solution architect at Microsoft. My colleague Ian is now going to be a solution engineer, starting from the new financial year, but it's the same role. So both from Microsoft, both presented here a few times now. So yeah, good to see everyone again. Let's move this along. No. So the session today, we're going to be talking around Semantic Link and Semantic Link Labs and what they can do for you as Power BI developers or Power BI admins, and seeing how we can automate a number of tasks and basically make our lives a lot easier. So first off, what is Semantic Link? It's a Python library that's built into Fabric now, so you can make use of that within your Jupyter notebooks or your notebooks inside of Fabric. It's pre-installed, so there's no need to install. We just need to import and then start calling the functions. It's supported by Microsoft. It's got a number of list functions, such as like list data sets, list workspaces. So very quickly, you can start to get a view of your tenant. It's got functions to execute DAX, TIMSL, XMLA, the DMVs, all those types of things. And it's basically gives us a REST client that we can make use of to call any of the APIs within Fabric or Power BI. Semantic Link Labs is our open source library. It's on GitHub. You can go and view the code if you want to. We very much welcome any contributions from the community. So if you see maybe there's a bug or there's maybe a new feature that can be implemented, then we very much welcome that and we'll triage those. It's all publicly available. It's an extension of Semantic Link. At the moment, at the point of FabCon, it was like 450 functions. It's developed by a guy called Michael Kovalsky. He's the owner and the Fabric Cat, the customer advisory team. He works alongside Chris Webb and a few others. And he sort of jokes, and we joke internally, there's sort of like Semantic Link Labs, there's a function for that. So if there's something that you want to do inside of Fabric using the APIs, then more than likely there'll be a function in there that you can make use of. If it's not there, then as I say, you're more than welcome to contribute to the repo and share that code. It's constantly evolving. I think at the point in time when we presented maybe the capacity migration back, maybe last year, there wasn't as many functions, so it's continually growing. And the idea is that you don't need to write lines and lines of code to call these APIs. We'll put the wrappers around it so that you just call the single function and execute. And hopefully when we get into a bit more detail and go through the slides, you'll get an idea of what the art of the possible is. As I say, it's very much a community-driven project, so we welcome the contributions. There's hundreds and hundreds of articles out there now, videos, blog articles. You just need to search up Semantic Link Labs, and you'll find something. Guy and Cube have done a few videos on it as well, so as I say, yeah, just you can search it up. The goal of Semantic Link Labs specifically is to make sort of challenging developer tasks. So as Power BI admins or capacity admins or even workspace admins, we want to try and simplify our job as much as possible and offload a lot of the work to sort of functions. So things that we would have to do manually in the past, the idea is to try and automate that wherever possible. And then obviously showcase the power of Fabric. So the whole ecosystem now has evolved from just Power BI and reporting. There's now a whole host of other workloads, and this can be your introduction to those workloads. We're not saying get rid of Databricks, get rid of Snowflake. If you've got your Power BI reports in there, then let's start to use just Fabric notebooks, maybe some lake houses to help automate some of the tasks. These are just a number of scenarios that you can do with that, and we won't dwell on this slide because we're going to go into a lot of demos now. But there's a whole host of functionality in there. Capacity migration, I've got a vested interest in that because I was one of the main contributors in that, and we presented that back maybe last year at PBI Manchester. So yeah, we'll go into that. I think I hand over to you now, Ian.
Is anyone using Semantic Link Labs already? Is anyone? Cool. Okay. What about Python, Anyone? Or is everyone? Yes, starting to get there. So it shouldn't be a huge jump, but it is getting more hands-on and going through that. So we'll jump through some of the demos and just try and give you an understanding. You'll see this is all code first. So, you know, if you're used to your clicky, draggy, droppy, this is not that at the moment. So I would say, yeah, you might need to get a little bit more hands-on, but don't be frightened. There's a lot of courses out there about how you go do this. You will need a fabric capacity to go and do this, but you'll see here we're importing Senpai, which that the labs is built on top of. You can put this in the variable environment, so this has to load up, so you don't have to keep loading this, and then obviously you're starting to go and do some of the bits below. Right, do I need to? So in this one, so this one, you're going to see some of the ones we're listing workspaces. So this, maybe you would have done this for the APIs previously. You can all do this in code now. So you can go and see, list all the reports. You can actually sort of tie it down to one workspace. So you can do your whole tenant. I wouldn't probably go do that, but I would do it to probably more of the workspaces. This one is going and looking, scrolling a little bit fast. I don't think me or David is typing as fast as this, what we were doing, but it's listing tables out there, but it gives you a bit of an information, so you can go and see partitions. This one's doing, but you can see it's pulling all the different functions in there. So from this point of view, you can go code all this up, step through it. This one has got the extended properties on those columns from the back of that. This one's pulling out the measures, so you can just see this is, you know, doing everything in code very quickly. If you've got shortcuts as fast as that, but it's just trying to show you that you can actually get this quite easily now from code, whereas maybe you had to go write the APIs and write this yourself. This is just doing it from the notebook experience. This one is actually doing a DAX query inside of this, so you can actually run DAX, and it will actually then run the DAX inside of the actual notebook as well. So yeah, there's no way I'm typing all of this out. I would have got a shortcut off the back of this. I think these are Michael's demos, aren't they, that we've taken. But you can see he's gone through and actually run some DAX inside of the notebook. So this is doing everything that maybe that you were doing outside before. And if you're more of a code first side of things, you can go and do that. So you can list the workspaces, you can go and list the reports, and then go and build on top of those. So if you're used to using data frames, you can start iterating through those and go and do that. So if you've done stuff with some of the monitoring and things like that, that's where probably people have been going and getting some of that. So I would say go and look at them. All of this is documented. Let's go to the next one. So this is looking at some of the APIs now. So scanner APIs, so export reports along this side. So again, this is pulling in some of the data sources. We're going to run all of this. So if you've not seen the code, just go and run the cells and execute all of that. It's going to go and do all the scanner API. So if you've used scanner API outside before, this is listing everything inside the workspace or inside the tenant. So you can see there's workspaces. It's giving you all the properties off the back of that. So then you can go and load those and query them on top of that. So it's just showing, look, everything's available inside there where you have to go and do those outside the API before. Right, next one. And also this one is going to show exporting reports to a PDF. So you can actually then go into this, go and get your report. So previously you'd obviously have to go and click and go and export that one, but you can do this now inside the code. So this is going to the notebook, just getting the folder. From this point of view, just writing all the code out there, and this is going to export it to a PDF. So you're doing that all in code. So you can do that directly from the notebook. You can obviously put that part of your pipelines if you want to and start coding that up. So just think about outside of where you have had to have gone and done that before. You can actually now code this up, put it as part of a pipeline, or part of just calling this through. It's quite simple. You know, again, if you're in the data engineering side, that that's been exported. as a PDF, and then you can go and push that out if you need to. Any questions? Are we going too fast? Is this all making sense? Yeah. Yeah. Where are we next? Yeah. So obviously this is taking this, and obviously
So that just I forgot to sort of mention this, but the idea originally behind Semantic Link was that in sort of the traditional sense, Power BI was always at the end of sort of the ETL process. It was the final point of we've done all our modeling, we've now finished, and we'll produce some reports. The idea behind Semantic Link was that you can now connect to those semantic models and extract data out of them. So those aggregations that you've got now in your semantic models, your data scientists, for example, could now start to connect with their notebooks, pull the data into a data frame, and then do some additional analytics on top of that. So since then, it's obviously evolved with Semantic Link Labs as well. And hopefully now, as we start to go into a bit more of these sort of walkthroughs, it'll make more of an idea and make sense. Before I play this one, is anyone familiar with Tabular Editor? Hopefully there's a few people that have used it. Are you familiar with Best Practice Analyzer? Yeah, so basically there's a number of rules that you can run against your semantic models, whether it be formatting rules, performance rules, and you can run those natively inside of Tabular Editor. But what now you can do with Semantic Link Labs is actually call that via your notebooks and then sort of start to store that data and build reports. So I'll just press play on this and hopefully it makes sense. It's quite small on my screen here, but we can see here we've just got a function now inside of Semantic Link Labs, which says labs run model best practice analyzer against a particular semantic model or data set in a particular workspace. And then very quickly we can see what rules that's violated. So there's some issues with our text expressions, there's some formatting issues, maintenance, performance issues. If we work for a multinational organization or an organization that maybe has users that speak and read different languages, you can automatically translate these now on the fly using this function. You pass in the language parameter and it will translate it automatically. So if you've got maybe non-English speaking users that the default with output, you can now translate very quickly. We can export the output. We can display it as a data frame if need be. Very quickly now we can store this in a table inside of our lakehouse, inside of Fabric, so that we can snapshot at any point in time. We could run this weekly, and then we can monitor how those rules are changing over time. Because ideally, we want to take this as an action list, provide it to our end users or our semantic model owners, and they then go and act upon those those violations. So that was just for a single model. So again, you're probably saying, oh, we can just do this in Tabular Editor. We can also now run this in bulk. So we can run this for all our semantic models in a particular workspace. We can run it against all of our semantic models in our tenant if we wanted to. And you can see, obviously, we sped the video up again because it's quite a lot for us to go through. But here, we run this for a particular workspace. It's now stored all of those into a particular table in our lakehouse. And then we'll see in a moment that we can now automatically generate a semantic model on top of that table. So we can see here it's generated the semantic model for our report, for our best practice analyzer. And then we're going to generate a report. So what this notebook's doing and what this functionality is doing is injecting a semantic model into the workspace and also a report. So you as an admin, you're not having to do anything. You could just point this to a workspace, run it, and then we should see now that this report, we should see model, BPA, and semantic model in a report here. So if we jump into our report, very quickly now we can see, we could share this with our end users, with our semantic model owners, and then we can look at the types of violations. So whether it be performance, so if we're having issues on our capacity, we can then pass this to our capacity owners and say, go take a look at these performance violations as starter for 10. Question? It's what you've got access to. So yeah, you can do it on a pair workspace. You can leave the workspace parameter, I think, as none, and it will do all workspaces that you've got access to. Yeah. And yeah, it's basically, this is already built for you, the semantic models behind the scenes. So if you want to go and delve a bit deeper into the data, you can do that. It's not a case of it's a black box and this is what you get. It's just giving you a sort of starter for 10. So for me, this is one of the most sort of powerful features that Michael worked on initially. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I ran it against mine, and there was a lot of violations, so I won't share it on screen, but there was a lot. And then lastly, if anyone's familiar with Fabric Guru, so yeah, Sandeep is an MVP. I think he provided the video for this, but basically, Semantic Link Labs has also got access to Graph, and we can now send emails. So on top of what we just seen about running best practice analyzer against all of our semantic models, we can now trigger email alerts as well to say, here's the output, here's a report based on your violations or on these rules, please take action. So if we start to think about the old days of Power BI administration, we were probably having to run tabular editor manually or at least schedule it somehow. Maybe you're running PowerShell scripts to extract some of this data out of the service. It's now all sort of as a Fabric native solution. We're not having to go out and drop out to third-party tools or anything like that. We can now run it all within the service, and then we'll hopefully just see the email arrive in a moment. And I guess as we're presenting, we're not expecting everyone to sort of remember exactly what's happening here. It's hopefully just planting the seed of the art of the possible, and then you go away and can start taking a look at this. But you can see here, here's the output of the email, and we can drop that into model owner email inboxes or whoever we need to email. And then lastly, for me, is just the translation. Oh, sorry, go back. There's functionality in. So whereas previously maybe we'd have to manage, say, the translations ourselves, we can now do this automatically via Semantic Link Labs. We can just translate it to whatever language we need to. In here, we're simulating it using the URL, but by default, it'll pick up the user's locale. So if they've got, say, an Italian locale, it'll pick that up. If it's got any other locale, French, German, any of those, it will translate those automatically when the users log into those reports. So it won't translate the data within the model, but it'll translate the metadata around it. So column names, things like that will all be translated. And it's all done programmatically. So again, if we go back to those initial functions that Ian shared, if we say list workspaces, list all semantic models in those workspaces, we can then very quickly write some Python that will iterate over those models and translate them for us very quickly without us having to go through one by one or do some other process. We can do it all now within the Power BI or Fabric service. Is it you next? I think report. Yes.
So, and obviously just building on what you were saying, so obviously centralizing semantic models, so you've got, obviously that's where you should be trying to do, use one semantic model, trying to build lots of reports, but also with this, if you've got your data engineers and your data scientists using that same semantic model, that's one place. So try and think when you're using Fabric, it's about trying to avoid having multiple duplicate copies of everything. So hopefully it's showing, look, there's a centralized place to go and get the data and the semantic models, and you can use it not just for your reports, it's also using it for data engineers to go and build reports, etc. on this. So pushing on with this, you can obviously go and build your own rules and then export them. So just watch the video. Oops, going to click the wrong button. Right. So from this point of view, just run. Yeah, so you've got a report. We're going through this. It's running the actual BPA off the back, the best practice analyzers. You can see on this one, you can click through there and it will actually take you to the page showing you where the best practices are for this. So it's actually showing you when you've run the report, what's the best thing to do. Also, it's going to take you to the report and show you the visualization that actually isn't sort of displaying. So in this one, it's got no data on there. So you can see the box, I think, on the back of that. But then you can start to say, well, I want to take those rules out, so I want to ignore those rules. So you can start tailoring what report rules you want to do. So at the back of this, we're going to run the report again, but then start excluding some of the reports. So down the bottom, we're going to say disable one of the show items with no data. So you can actually then start filtering out the ones you want to see and what you want to do. So you're actually building on top of the best practice analyzer and say, well, I don't want to be showing those ones. And now you've got a subset of those reports. So you can start to exclude the ones off the back of that. So it's just saying that you can have more flexibility, whereas before, you got them all. Well, if you want to exclude some of those because, well, I'm not interested in those, or I'm not the person that's going to deal with them, you can start to sort of pare those down off the back of that. The next one. Anyone using organizational themes on their reports? Maybe. Okay, you can actually go and do that and set them up on the report. So this says this is in preview, but we'll go slide in a minute. Right, so you can actually set up the organizational themes. So going in there and actually creating them and adding off the back of that. So you may have a report and then you have to put a theme on top of that. You can actually go and set that up as part of this. And you,
yeah, just this is a nightmare. I know. So the biggest thing for me when this launched was say if our organisation rebranded, say we had a colour scheme that was a certain colour and then rebranded. Can you not hear us at all? There you go. Is that better? Sorry. So say our organisation rebranded and we changed colour schemes. If we wanted to go and make that change previously, we'd have to download all of the reports, one by one, apply the theme. Whereas now, hopefully, you're starting to see the power of what we can do. We could go through every report in the whole tenant and apply those themes programmatically. We can store them inside of one lake, which we won't touch on here, but it's just given us the option, especially now with the new RDL format and the PBIP, so the PBI projects and things. Now it's all well defined. We're able to make these changes programmatically to the reports and not break them. So when this one launched, it was like, wow, that's pretty cool, because I never fancied downloading thousands of reports and then rebranding them. So you can quite quickly iterate over those. And like Ian says, the new feature from the Power BI visualization core team, the organization themes that are going to be included as well. Sorry. All right.
Back. Right, so hopefully got that one. So what are we on to? Also refresh of semantic model. So you can also do this from here as well. So oops, press the wrong button. Press play. So this is going through and taking each of the semantic model, taking all of the data sets, and then one by one you're going through and refreshing those. So it's going through each of those. You programmatically you can take that, go through this, and it's then going to show how that's processing. So you get a report out at the end that showed, well, how long did that take? So this could obviously, you could program this in the back, from this point of view, and just call this on the back of the code again to just sort this out. So where we're going, we've got a data set, visualizing the actual output, so how that refresh is actually progressing from the back of that. So this is going to keep refreshing until it's complete and just keep showing you, look, I've got these number of these tables in the back of the semantic model that it needs to go and do. You can see how that's going to build that up. So slowly building, and hopefully you'll come to the end in a second. And it's just yeah, showing you duration, how long that took, all in the code from that. And then you can output that, write that, send that as a report if you wanted to. Again, so it's all doing that side. So it's all codifying that app. So you can actually do that. And then obviously it's breaking that down so you can actually go and actually see the underlying parts of that. Well, what did it do? How long did each of those take? So there's a lot of functionality in here. And again, there's a GitHub with all the list of the things in there. So we're just covering some of the main ones off the back of this. So there's quite a lot to jump through in one evening to do that. Some advanced ones. Is this one yours? Hand that back.
So is anyone familiar with the tabular object model library? I know Johnny is. So what this allows us to do now is, again, connect programmatically using basically the tabular object model, which is the semantic model behind the scenes. So the video's too small for people to see. Sorry, I apologize for that, because we're using projecting Teams. It's not working. But what we're able to do is we can use we can connect the service principal to our semantic model, and you can see here now we're just very simply listing all of the tables inside of our semantic model. It's fairly noddy, this example, but we can do this with semantic models and also Azure analysis services. So we can connect to those models, and initially we're just listing, but as we move on now, we're going to do some examples. So for this scenario, what we're going to do is we're going to connect to our semantic model called save test. We're going to list out all of the tables in that semantic model, and you can see here we've got, it's a fairly small model, but we've got dim date, dim customer, dim product, fact internet sales. So from an end user perspective, that's not very user friendly. It doesn't mean an awful lot to our end users. So what we're able to do is actually write back to the semantic model and rename those columns. So we're just going to do a bit of code here. We're going to remove the word dim. We're going to remove the word fact, and then convert it to friendly case as well. So from our users' perspective now, they're just going to see date, customer, product, internet sales. So we're able to do a bit of housekeeping on our semantic models programmatically again. So, look at the list here. It's a fairly large list for us to go through and rename all of those. I mean, ideally, you should be going back to your modelers and saying, sort this out, because how's this getting into prod? But we all know it can end up like the Wild West in Power BI. So at least it gives us an opportunity to tidy up our semantic model. So here we're going to list all columns. We're going to print the name, and basically if it's a visible column, then we're going to rename it. If it's a hidden column, so things like keys for relationships and things like that, there's no point in us renaming those because nobody's going to see them. So we're just going through. You can see here we've tidied some up. We've got the sort of friendly names for those, but then things like customer key and things like that are still just customer key. So again, it's just given us functionality at our fingertips where we can do things at scale fairly quickly rather than having to manually go and do that. So generate measure descriptions. Has anyone seen this feature in using Copilot in the service? So within the service now, we can use sort of Gen AI to take a look at our DAX, look at how we're doing our calculations for our measures, and then provide sort of a user-friendly description for that. So what we're able to do here is basically, again, I sound like a broken record, but we're able to do it at scale. Now we're able to connect to our semantic models, not just a singular model, and iterate through all of our measures in our semantic model, and then apply and generate descriptions. Because, like I say, you'd ideally go back to your semantic modelers and say, why aren't we documenting? But how many people are doing this in the real world? So it at least gives us a stepping stone and a way to just make things better for our end users. Sorry, I forgot to press play. So again, we'll connect to our semantic model. We'll list the measures initially, so we can just take a quick look at those. So we'll have a data frame here. We can see there's no measure descriptions for those. What we're then able to do is to call Semantic Link Labs function, basically, so we can connect to the model using the Tom library, and then we're going to call this this function generate measure descriptions. Kind of does what it says on the tin. We'll need to refresh the cache because it's just not cached, but we're going to do that, and then if we lift the measures again, we can now see that it's added a friendly description, so that when our end users, maybe from a self-serve perspective, want to start building out their own reports, they'll see this. So we can see here, again, we're still within the notebook, but we'll drop out in a second to the semantic model, so we can at least see and prove that it works. So we look at the model view in the service, we find one of our measures, and then now we can see there's a friendly description, which makes things easier for our developers and end users to sort of start getting to speed with what we're doing. I don't think we need to see any more of that. DAX query dependencies. This is probably delving a little bit deeper now into what maybe we want to start looking at. So we can take some queries maybe generated from a profiler trace or DAX Studio. We can take a look at, we're just looking here at the sales amount and seeing what columns and tables that sales amount references as a measure. We can then pass that DAX string, so that DAX query is just doing evaluate columns. We can show the Vertipack stats if need be, so we can see what memory usage is being used. And then we can see from our DAX query above what tables and columns are being referenced by that DAX query, whether it be explicitly or implicitly through relationships and things like that. So we don't need to do it just for a single query, so we can pass in multiple queries as a list. And again, we'll just pass that through and it'll display that. I won't dwell too much on this one because I'm conscious of time, so I'll skip through the video, but you get the idea. Is we can start to see what dependencies our queries have when they're being run against the models. View broken reports. So the previous example, or one of the previous examples that we shared, was being able to go and make programmatic changes to the semantic model, because we've now got the new RDL format, so the report definition language, and the report wrapper within Semantic Link Labs. What we're able to now do is programmatically make changes to our reports as well. So this scenario will list all our semantic model objects. It'll tell us what we've got access, what our reports are accessing. We can see maybe which tables are being referenced the most by reports. But what we're also able to do is look at our report and say which of our visuals are broken, because we've all been there. Maybe some we've got, and the example here is we've got a measure called sales 1 or sales 2. And then one of our semantic modelers, we've got, say, hundreds of reports referenced in sales 2. One of our semantic modelers goes in and fixes the name, redeploys the semantic model, and then all of our reports are now broken because we've not done a proper release process. We've not, regression test any changes. So what we're able to do then is connect to the reports, and we can see here, it's probably not very well on the screen, but we're able to connect to the to the report, update the reference in the report JSON, and then that will then correct the measure reference, and then all of those broken reports are now fixed. And all of these scenarios as well, like as I say, we're flying through these demos, but a lot of the scenarios are well documented in the GitHub repo. So you can download helper notebooks that get you started. So Best Practice Analyzer will have a helper notebook. We can see here we're going to rename sales amount to sales amount 2. We can then reference the broken report, report visuals in here. And then because I've just been talking over it, we can't see. But you can see here it says true and false for broken or not broken. There's another minute of this video, so I won't dwell on it, but I'll skip on to the next one. Hopefully, again, you get the idea is that now because the report wrappers available. We can see this report's broken. We'll go back in a minute. We'll change the measure name, and that will automatically fix the report for us. So like I say, we're not expecting you to remember this and then go off and do this, tomorrow. More a case of what's possible going forwards. Is anyone familiar with the master mini model approach? Anyone ever come across that before? I know Johnny has. He's like my plant. I've told him. So what anyone familiar with analysis services in the olden days, sort of multi-dimensional models where you can have perspectives? So like a perspective, you could have a sort of fairly large semantic model with all of our organizational data in there. And we've got our finance data, we've got our HR data, we've got our sales data. That's a pretty monolithic model, and we maybe don't want to give users access to all of that. What you're able to do now is you can create perspectives inside of Power BI semantic models, but they don't work in the way that they used to. But what we're able to do now is we can take a deployment. Sorry, I've not pressed play again. We can take a deployed semantic model that's maybe our master model with all of our data in there, and then we can say, let's create a subset or a perspective view of that semantic model and deploy it to another workspace. So we can then just deploy our finance data. We can just deploy our HR data. And again, it just takes all of that metadata from the semantic model and allows you to deploy it elsewhere. It's just a single function. You're not having to go and write loads of Python scripts. You're not allowed to. You don't need to go and do a lot of work. It's all there. So there's an old blog post where Michael developed I think it was a C# application that did this. But again, now we're moving away from sort of those third-party tools, and we can do it all Fabric native inside of the service. So we can see here our perspectives. We've got two different versions of the model. We want to overwrite and deploy. We can refresh the data as well if we need to. So there's all these functions there now available to you. I feel like a lot of people are walking out, so I should start to move on the Peter's here. So I'll skip over this because there's another minute on the video as well. So, but you get the idea. You can take a semantic model and maybe deploy it to another workspace, and you can do it by perspective or the whole model if need be. The last one here is if you're working with lake houses inside of Fabric, if somebody deletes a table, for example, or deletes some files within your lake house, there's now a function that allows you to recover and restore those. So I think we delete our calendar table. That's then lost. There's a soft delete policy within lake houses in Fabric, which is 7 days. You can then basically call this function, which is basically a wrapper around the API to then go and recover and restore that table. So, if somebody gets a bit trigger happy, starts deleting tables, then at least you can recover those fairly quickly. It also works with files and folders. So if somebody deletes a folder in error, you can go and restore that whole structure. Again, just using this function. Like I say, it's all of the functions are named by what they do. So recover lakehouse object, it kind of does what it says on the tin. So if you're not using Fabric artifacts or workloads at the moment, this is maybe something for the future. But again, we can recover those fairly quickly. And then last one, Ian, do you want to go through this? Sure. Yeah. So has anyone seen that dreaded error message where we try and download a report and it says this cannot be downloaded because you've made changes via the XMLA endpoint or something like that? So introducing the new Power BI project format, we're now able to download those and save them to OneLake. So we can see here, we're going to try and download I think it was the semantic model or the report, and it failed. We've now got this save report as PBIP function. Again, it does what it says on the tin, but it's now going to save that to OneLake. So it's just the storage account inside of Fabric. We can then quickly see that that is now saved to that folder. We can go see the semantic models in there, the reports in there, and then we can use One Lake Explorer if need be, where we can then, which is kind of like the OneDrive client that we can run on our PC or our laptops, and then we can access those files. So those reports that were previously lost and we had no way of getting them out, we can now start to get those out and extract them from the service. So it's one of those things that's always been missing. The minute you make any kind of change via the XMLA endpoint, you can't download the model, you can't download the report. Now we've got the functionality to do that. So to me, it's one of those features that's pretty powerful and makes our job a lot easier going forward. So you can see that this has been downloaded into Power BI Desktop. We can make changes to that. We can then redeploy it to the service. We can store it in Git if we want to. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't think we need to dwell on this. Again, it's more a case of this is the art of the possible. This is what we've got. And then, do you want me to just keep going? Yeah, okay. People are going to get sick of my voice. But yeah, new versions are constantly being released. So if you're using Dataflows Gen 1, if you're aware of Alex Powers, he's been doing some work with Michael to allow you to upgrade those from Gen 1 to Gen 2, which is the new sort of fabric sort of data flows. Organizational themes, like Ian mentioned earlier, are going to be possible and supported. Synonyms and updating linguistic schemas inside of the models are going to be available. And there's a whole host of other features. It's just the best thing to do is go to the repo, look at the releases, and it'll go through all of the functionality that's been released. Yeah, I asked the same question because I didn't understand what the versioning was. So when I got involved, it was like version 0.8. I was like, well, what made that 0.8? It was like, I think it's just major releases. At some point, it will get to 1, but I don't know when. Well, I'll ask Mike and I'll let you know. Yeah, but yeah, and the sort of, if you look at the repo, the tagline is sort of early access previews prior. So a lot of this functionality that we've been working on has now been built into Semantic Link. So at some point we'll not deprecate, but we'll be able to switch out the Semantic Link Labs functions into Semantic Link. Then it's baked into the product. It's fully supported rather than being open source, and we can fork that and make our own versions if we want to. So yeah, that's I don't know. That's the answer. That's a long way of saying it. I don't know. Yeah. So I think that's it. The QR codes there, very much I'd recommend just taking a stab looking at it. You don't need a Fabric capacity to do it. You can run all of this on your Power BI capacities if you're still working with Power BI capacities. And yeah, if there's any questions after pizza, come and join us now. Okay.
How much of what you've shown is available through Purview about looking at semantic models and
It's kind of unrelated. So this is more sort of like a Python or Spark workload that you'd run to go and capture that data. So Purview would be completely separate. Should we break for pizzas and then you can come and grab me and Ian if there's any questions, because I'm sure people are out there eating already. So let's go. Thanks for your time.